If you stand by the door of your brain and you have the ability to watch as your thoughts come in and out, then you are not your thoughts because you are able to observe them. And neither are you the body because the brain exists within the body. So if you are the awareness that is able to observe the thoughts, then it means you're not bound by this physicality as we know it. I try to start from this juncture because if you can get your identity right, if you can get if there's something I want all of you to hopefully at least strengthen by the time this session ends, is your connection with your true identity. And I say this because human conditioning almost leaves you no space to understand your true nature and who you are. And I'll probably get into it with psychology as we go along to back up why that is. But that exercise was to start you from a point of understanding that you are not even your thoughts. You're the one observing as your thoughts come in. Almost like you are the one projecting the experience you're having through life. Now, when I look at this table, I can see a variety of colors. I don't know how many colors you guys can see, but I can see orange, I can see green, I can see blue. And when you look around your environment, I like the way in nature, you'll notice that you can see different colors. Now, scientifically, it's been proven that the human eye can barely see 1% of color. So your eyes, as much as you look around, your eyes see less than 1% of what reality is. So maybe the horror movies you guys watch are more closer to reality than what your eyes see every day. Now, we are conditioned as we grow up to maximize on our 5 senses. You know, cats, they say cats have 9 lives. I've seen a cat somewhere. They can tell good energy, so I'm kind of humble that it feels safe around us. Now, as we grow up, we're conditioned to utilize only about 5 of our senses. What you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, and all that. And we grow up normalizing that particular conditioning. Now, there's a juncture, I think, that you arrive at, and I believe that is where you guys are at in this particular journey, whereby your eyes start to open up to not only your true abilities, but to the fact that we've all been collectively creating our reality in a very limited sense. And it comes down to our identity. Now, the first phase of this class is going to be about energetics. The second phase is going to be about business mastery. When I talk about energetics, it encompasses 3 things. We are going to look at the backing of it in science. This is the quantum backing of it. And we're going to look at the psychology point of view. And then we're going to touch on the spiritual point of view. I say this because it's good that we understand that this conversation is no longer the woo conversation people think, or magic or something. It's reality and how reality works. And now we are lucky enough to be backed up with science. Now, the person that was observing your thoughts the awareness behind your thoughts is the only thing that actually exists in the universe. And that is who you are, and that is who I am, and that is what everything is. We've just named it differently. So quantum physics will call it the universal field. Spirituality would call it consciousness. And different philosophies will refer to it as the energetic field or energy. Now, nobody is fighting that is the reality. Everyone is fighting to merge the truth. But the thing is, when you go down the rabbit hole, you find that all these things, they come down and they meet at the same point. Now, in this session, I'm going to ask you to open up your mind wider than you've been trained to. So I was raised, for example, in a very religious setup. And someone asked me the other day, I was on an interview, and somebody asked, that the things you talk about, do you go to church? You know? And I found that very interesting because people think there's a separation. And I was like, when I'm home, I'm going to tag along when mom is going to church because I don't see the harm in it. When I sit in church, I realize the message is the same. It's just that sometimes the interpretation is lost in the process. And they might have some limitations, but if they can open up their eyes, they'll realize that at the end of it all, what we call God is actually what makes the fabric of everything. It's what is called the source energy. It's what drives that quantum field that you're going to talk about today. Now, someone might ask, where is your proof of this? And I think throughout this entire session, that proof it's not an answer I have to give. It's something you'll arrive at. Now, if you are the awareness that is able to observe your thoughts, then how do you get to create, or people call it manifest, any reality you want? Those are the things we're going to be discussing today. You are already aware that you and the awareness are one in the same. There is no separation between you and God. That is the biggest fallacy you've been taught so far. And it's because you tend to identify with this physical entity that you are, the body. This exercise that we just did was to make you go back and realize your true identity, which that you're one and the same with consciousness. You're one and the same with the awareness. That is where you can sit at the door of your brain and decide what comes in and comes out. Now, the average human being is not aware that every single day, God lives within them. So the experience you give God every day determines what your life looks like. Are you showing up as your true identity? Or are you showing up as the body, the ego self? You start from that point. Now, I'm gonna start with a very simple, not simple, but I wanna start with psychology. If you wanna change your life today, they say who you think you are creates what you think is possible. And psychology breaks this down. Why? Because the truth is you can never be more than what you think you are. And this is why I like to start this class with identity. Because if you can get your identity right, your self-concept will easily be shaped. So who you think you are creates what you think is possible, right? That comes down to self-concept in psychology. Thank you. Now, what is self-concept? Your self-concept is your relation with the world, your relation with yourself and your relation with the world. Your self-concept is made up of every single thing you've experienced in your entire life. You don't even realize you have a self-concept, but you do. Your childhood is shaping your self-concept, has shaped your self-concept so far. Your experience with society has shaped your self-concept so far. Your experience with yourself shapes your self-concept. Your self-concept is the lens through which you look at the world and relate with the world. And it stems from how you relate internally with yourself. Now, psychology breaks self-concept into 3 parts. Part number 1 is your self-esteem. Most of us are not aware, but your self-esteem has been shaped all the way since you were a child. It's not something static, it's something you can change, but I'm trying to give you the background of what has built your self-esteem so far. Your self-esteem is how much you actually like yourself. Now, as a child, you're very curious. You see toddlers. My brother has a toddler. You see toddlers and how naturally a child, when they come into the world, they want to explore. Now, in the experience of the parent and people around them, when a child is going to grab this glass, usually a parent will do that. And this is done throughout your life in different ways. Different situations do this to you. Like, hold up, you're going to hurt yourself. A child naturally is very curious. A child comes into the world very pure. And then we start conditioning that child by instilling either fear in the process. And it's not out of harm. Usually people do it as a safety measure. But a child from a very young stage starts to learn there are things that can harm me in the world. I need to stay away from it. So the more we grow up, you find that your curious nature takes a step back and you start being someone who is more calculative. Now, your self-esteem is, when I say it's how much you like yourself, someone asked me the other day, now how do I boost my self-esteem? Because I seem to have I've been trying different avenues, but it just doesn't seem to work. Your self-esteem cannot be fixed on a superficial lens. You literally have to do the work, and I think you guys are already doing for you to be in such setups, by starting to understand your true identity, and then showing up for yourself in ways that make you end up respecting who you are. Now, how do you enhance, for example, your self-esteem? Because it shapes your self-concept. I promise you, you're not going to reach for a particular project that does not align to how you see yourself. You won't wake up and think, I actually deserve $10,000 of clients on a monthly retainer. If your self-esteem can't match it up, you'll always fall short based on your self-esteem as one aspect of your self-concept. Now, you get to like yourself when, first of all, you need to disidentify with the ego self. The ego self tells you you need to achieve certain things before you are worthy in your own eyes. Now, believe it or not, the person that you pass somewhere on the street holds the same essence like you do. They might not be aware of it, but the fact that they hold life within them, they hold the God essence that lives within all of us. So to at least amplify your self-esteem, you need to come back to the realization that you don't have to do anything externally outside yourself to be worthy. That is step number 1. Now, when you operate from that level of confidence, you'll find that you get out of your own way. And you'll now start moving towards doing things that get to open your eyes to your true abilities. So self-esteem, I'll expand more along as we go. Second part of self-concept is your ideal self. Have you ever asked a child what they want in life? Who has ever asked a baby what they want in life? A child, a young child. What do you want in life? Kids are very connected to their life, to their heart. I call it the heart force, but it's like a heart-brain coherence. A child will tell you right up front, you know, I just want to dance. I want to be a dancer. And it's what comes naturally to them, and it's something they enjoy. So they tell you, that's what I want to do in the future. Now, as we grow up, we find that society has conditioning. So society tells you, you need to pay your bills. You need to do A, B, C, and D. And so we start restructuring what we want through the lens of society. And this is where separation occurs. Now, your ideal self in psychology is your best version of yourself. It's a version of happiness that is living maybe in extreme happiness, has whatever they want out of life. That might look different. It might look like your dream car for some people. It might look like your dream home for some people. It might look like traveling for others. Your ideal self is your best version of yourself. Now, to improve your self-concept, you have to constantly stretch your ideal self. So, stretching your ideal self is knowing there are no limitations, and I'll arrive at why that is. You'll realize that the goals you usually have, you're not even aware of it, but they have a lens of protective layer around them. And that protective layer is based on not just your identity, but your impression of what you think is possible for you. So you look at your environment, you look at your age, maybe look at what you've done so far, and you think, even if I have some goals in the next 1 year, I don't think we could. This is what I think is possible. Now, to maximize your self-concept, you have to keep stretching that ideal self. And you have to do this intentionally, because you'll realize that your brain isn't wired, sorry to say, but isn't wired to fully help you change your life. Your brain is based on historical patterns. And psychology breaks this down very beautifully. You know, right now we are seated here. I don't know the means that you guys got to get to arrive here. But I want you to know that in your ancestry, and it's just basically like two grandfathers, maybe even just one grandfather down, was living a completely different lifestyle from what you're currently experiencing. And the brain has advanced based on our history. So your brain has actually evolved based on the history of your ancestor who was a caveman. I want to give you a scenario that most of us never think about. Your ancestor, right now it's about 10:14. Your ancestor would be up right now, probably has walked about 5 miles. They live in small communities of about 40 people. And this was to be able to keep each other safe. And for you to even move across, you'd have to go miles. So right now, your grandfather somewhere has left the family. He's probably 5 miles into his walk. And he starts feeling thirsty. I need to grab some water. So there's a stream. He drinks some water, then he realizes, I'm so hungry. I've been walking 5 miles. I need some fruits. So he goes a bit into the forest to look and pick some fruits. And he sees a tree with some fruits. As he's about to grab that fruit, a snake pops up. And it's either he saves his life, takes a hike, which he does. So he forgoes the fruit and takes a hike. He has to walk another 5 miles in search for what could be the immediate food. And then he has to come back And in these 5 miles that he's walking, there is no safety guarantee. He can run into anything. He can run into any wild animal. Nothing. He does not even have anything on his feet. He's literally barefooted as he's walking. Now, this is where humanity was just a few years ago. You might think it's a lifetime. And your brain has evolved from that particular setup. So your brain has 3 parts, and I'm going to tell you how they work. You have the back part of your brain, we call it the hind brain, or some people call it the lizard brain. And the back part of your brain is responsible for coordinating your physiological functions. Now, your physiological functions look like your ability to walk, or the way I'm taking this iPen, and writing on my screen, on my notes. What is making this possible for me to do this is the back part of my brain is responsible for movements. But it's coordinated by the middle part of my brain, which is responsible for communicating sensation and information to the back part of my brain. Now, what humanity, most of us, I feel like modern people are not aware of, is that for the longest time, the human brain was functional on those 2 parts. So it was the sensation driving the physiological part and then making you take a particular action. Now, your brain has matured in that particular pattern. The prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of the brain, is a very new development. It's a very new development, by the way. So the human brain, as you know it, the front part of your brain is responsible for things like awareness. Yeah, and it's the part that we'll delve more into as we go through this session. What I'm trying to make you understand is your brain is wired to work on repetitive patterns. So the middle part of your brain coordinates with the back part of your brain always. And this is why a lot of human beings are moving on autopilot. You're always moving on autopilot. And you think it's your fault. It's not your fault. It's the nature of how your brain works. So people say, I wish I could change my life. But if you don't understand that your own brain is wired to take you back on repetitive patterns, it will be so hard for you to bring yourself into the awareness, which is the front part of your brain, which is not automatic. So your brain works on automation with the other parts of your brain. You're always on autopilot. What is autopilot? Every single thing, we're talking about self-concept, every single thing you've experienced through your life since childhood, your brain has been keeping score, filing it away, every single thing. So sometimes you even think it's you thinking that particular thought. Your brain is just bringing a pattern back because it's seen something in your environment and it's gone back to its notes, its drive, and it's picking out what's relatable to this thing that just triggered me in the environment. So you don't even understand why you're behaving the way you're behaving, but your brain has gone 15 years back and picked a memory that it's stored away and it's relating to your current experience and it's bringing it to the surface. So you find yourself stuck in a pattern, in a loop of thoughts, and you struggle to get out because you think it's you showing up for you. In reality, it's your brain moving on autopilot. It's very important to understand this concept because most of us move with where our brain moves us to. You don't understand that your brain is a machine. It's simply pulling out files. Now, why is this important? Let's go to self-esteem. I'll expound further. Self-esteem is the 3rd part of self-concept. Sorry, not self-esteem, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is your ability to manage your own emotions and the emotions of others. Your self-concept can never expand beyond your emotional intelligence. I have a question before I continue. Now, before that question, let me finish up on emotional intelligence. Now, you have to learn how to stay in control of your emotions if you want to expand your self-concept. And it's easier to do this when you realize that it's you in control, not your brain, and neither your emotions. You see how you stood at the door of your brain and allowed thoughts to come in? That is the same thing you do with your emotions every time. You're just not aware of it. You are the one who has the ability to allow the currents that you feel within you. So the better or the faster you master how to manage those currents. Hi, Jacqueline. You're welcome. You'll be more in control of how you interact with yourself, but also the world. Now, I have a question that I want everyone to answer if possible. How many of you have arrived at a juncture whereby you feel you're in control of your thoughts and your feelings, your emotions? When you can comfortably observe a thought come in and tell it, please exit. I don't have the time for that today. Let something else come in.
80% maybe.
80%. Jacqueline, nice. All right. That is actually a good level. And everyone else will probably by the end of this session, you learn how to arrive there somehow. You're either in control or you're being controlled. The nature of the world we live in and the nature of the universe is based on duality. So, it's if you've not mastered your thoughts so far, I need you to understand that your thoughts are controlling you. And that is why I try to break down for you the psychology part of it so that you understand how your thoughts come up. Same thing to emotions. If you're not in control of your emotions, you're not a master of yourself. You're a slave. It's a harsh term, but it's reality. How do you enhance your self-concept? Number one, you're going to stop identifying with the body. This does not mean you don't treat who you are as important, but you need to recognize that your identity goes beyond the body as you know it. We've just done that experiment. You can clearly tell you are the awareness. So neither are you your thoughts, neither are you your body. So you need to start disidentifying with the body. Another thing you're going to do is you'll probably have to detach from your ego self. What is your ego self? Your ego self is the person that you've created in your mind to be through your experience of you. So your ego self looks like what you identify as. So if I was look at the ego creation of Julian, I would define Julian as this managing director. I would then define Julian as, I don't know, someone who probably runs an organization and a team. If I was looking at the ego self of Julian, then I'd look at Julian and define Julian as a daughter to someone, a sibling to others. What we define and identify with is so limited. If you can overcome the need, the human need that almost everybody has to identify with this physical reality. It's not that you ignore your experience through life. The whole point of you being a spiritual being, having a human experience, is to get to experience life as you are. It does not mean, though, that you get to identify with it. Why? Let's discuss illusions, which is an area that I love so much, because this is the point where many people get it, either find it very confusing. Now, if I told you no matter what happens, no matter what it is, it's all an illusion. Situations might seem real. Even people might seem real. But everything is a projection of your consciousness. This one fundamental truth is how you get to change your life. Why is this? Now, if everything is a projection of your consciousness, it means every single person in your life has been a creation by you, even the people that don't do well by you. Yes.
Yeah, that whole thing of everything is not real and whatever you're going through is not real. I think I hear it in my head, but I don't know what that means.
All right. That's actually a very soft way to ask it. I've gotten harsher ways. Yeah. So thank you for being nice. Now, I'm going to try break it down in a layman's, because sometimes I think it's a concept that almost it's easy to understand through almost like a personalized experience. Why do I say this? Now, we've just identified you're not your physical body. So you're the spiritual essence that is projecting your experience, right? Now, you are the awareness that is able to observe the thoughts come in and go out. Let's break it down through quantum physics, just so that you get to understand it. There's something in quantum physics we call a double split experiment. Now, a double split experiment, this is how they did it. You take a form of light, and I don't know if I have the right thing to describe it. So you have this form of light, and it's coming through two walls. So you have wall number, a good thing. You have wall number 1, you have wall number 2. Your form of light is coming from this point. Now, double split experiment in quantum physics, this is what scientists observed, is that this is wall number 1, wall number 2. Wall number 1, they put 2 splits. So, ni kama kutoboa shimo. So they put 2 splits in between wall number 1. So in wall number 1, we're going to use where the water is as your first point of where they've put that split. And up here on the water, the second point where they put that split. Now, as light is coming through this end, it meets a wall. But this wall number 1 has these 2 slits. So when it bounces and it goes to wall number 2, what do you see on wall number 2? You see the 2 lines through which light came through, right? Now that is what that feels normal, until they realized that when they're not observing, when they're not observing this light as it comes through this double split, when they're not observing, you know what happens when it lands on this end? Instead of the 2 lights the way you'd see them, they saw a stream of light So there are no particular two streams of light coming just in through when you're observing. When you're not observing, these light particles, because light is made of a particle and a wave. That is how quantum physics describes it. So these particles, instead of behaving in an uniform manner the way we expect them to behave, right? They were coming all along the same line. And you think that is enough until they did an electron beam. So an electron beam, and then they used a detector. So instead of it doing the same thing when you're observing, when you're not observing, it behaves in an abnormal way. What am I trying to arrive at? Everything is energy, including you and I. That is now proven in quantum physics. For the longest time when you were in school, we learned that the building blocks of an atom. So everything is made of an atom. We all know that. This pen, you and I, at the very miniature level, it's an atom. So that is what we learned in school to be the building blocks of matter, right? Until they proved that actually within that atom, it's 99.999 something percent space. So matter as we know it, as you see this, it's simply a collapsed form of frequency. So I might be seeing a glass, but at the core of this glass, it's simply frequency that has been collapsed. So everything in our universe is energy at a very pure point. This is no longer something that Julian came up with. This is something that's now backed with science. Now, if everything is energy, and this is why I was saying, everything originates from that creator energy. What religion would call God, what quantum physics will call the quantum field or the universal field, what spirituality would call consciousness. Everything comes from that. And that is the same awareness that you have when you can observe your thoughts. That is the same essence that lives within you. Now, the experiment I was showing you guys was to make you understand that consciousness is not passive. Consciousness creates from observation. What does this mean? If light behaves differently when it's being observed, and all of us are literally at the core just energetic beings, it means how you get to experience consciousness through your lens is what you, I'd say, pay attention to. Yeah? But consciousness is malleable, and so is reality, because energy, it can neither be created nor destroyed, but it's malleable. This experiment is to make you realize the power of not just observing, but the power within you to create any outcome you want. Now, if you are the awareness, if you are one with that creator energy, if the life force of God that flows through you, flows through the universe, and your body, as I see you, I might see the body, and this is why you can always tell when someone is bad vibes or good vibes, because we are energy. So I might see the body, but you are not the body. You're an energetic being within. So, and you actually have a magnetic field around you that is also visible, and science has proven that, right? And we now even know that the more I live in elevated emotions, the more my magnetic field expands. So if that is the reality, how can we identify with the ego self of who you think you are in this physical dimension? What I'm trying to say is, when I say everything is a projection of your consciousness, it is to mean that people think, for example, your soul lives within your body. No. Your soul is projecting your body, and so is everyone's soul. And as you go down the rabbit hole, this is why it gets confusing, guys. If it gets confusing for you, don't worry, feel free. As you go down the rabbit hole, you eventually find that it comes down. You see how this thing is shaped? It comes down to one source energy. And that is why when you pray to God, you feel so connected. Because there's no separation between you and God. There's no separation between you and that quantum field. So it's like having an eyesight that is low down here. But the deeper you go, the more you realize there is actually no separation, even amongst us as human beings. And amongst everything. So even the tree you see, even the soil, and I'll explain how, even the waters and the sun, everything is connected through that source energy. That is what gives life to everything. That is what gives life to you, gives life to the tree, gives life to the sun that gives us food. Now, I find this very interesting because now biology is backing us up. Now, for the longest time, we used to think the biggest organ in the human body was this human skin. Right? Now it's being proven it's something called fascia. Fascia, a connective tissue between all our cells, the one thing that connects all our cells within the body. And you might think, what does that mean? It's this sticky substance, this like stringy substance within our body that connects everything. You might say, what does that have to do with this essence? Until you realize that it's the one thing that it does not just connect cells, but it transfers information from the brain back to the body. And now it's being measured through biophotons. So literally that is light. That is how you measure fascia. So literally in your body there is electricity streaming through your brain back to your body organs and communicating that information. I'm saying these examples because you need to realize that even if you're seeing Julian seated here, it's purely a form of energy that is connecting all these things. Now, if you're this energy that is projecting this physical reality, to answer your question, if you're the energy that is projecting the physical reality, then even if you're not aware of it, you've made it all happen. It may be a very hard concept to grasp, yeah, yeah, but every single person, for example, in your reality will be a projection of your consciousness. And that is why whenever you move as an individual, whenever you move into a different mindset, you'll always figure out that people start to exit your life. It's not because there's anything negative you're doing, but it's because naturally at an energetic level, you're no longer a match to people you used to be a match with. Now they just naturally disappear because in the existence of your projection of your consciousness, they can no longer be in the same dimension or realm as you are. What I'm trying to tell you guys is when you understand that the physical reality as we know it is not only limited because we tend to give so much power to our five senses, but everything in the physical reality is a projection of your consciousness. And the version of you might not understand it. The version of you living in this body might not understand it fully. But guess who knows it? Your higher self. Have you guys heard of people saying your higher self? Yes. Your higher self knows it so clearly. And that is why I'll teach you how to tap into the ability of at least correlation with your higher self. Because if you can learn to work in sync with your higher self, I think life becomes more playful. This is a game, guys. Think of it as a game. I think humanity suffers so much because of resistance and taking life too seriously. Imagine if your energy and we are connected to God at the source. You've literally come to this life to experience what it is like to live in a human limited body. Now, most of us take it too seriously and you live your entire life in that limitation. You never go back and re-identify with where you originally come from. There's a story in the Bible that I like, and I think it's misinterpreted so much with preachers. And this is why, if you guys are religious, I want you to start reading the Bible with an understanding. Ask God to give you an inner understanding, or rather lean towards your intuition to understand certain stories and don't take them at face value. There's a story in the Bible called the prodigal son. And the prodigal son left the rich father and took his riches and went out and got into troubles and lost everything and started eating with pigs. Until he remembered, wait, even my own father's employees don't live such a horrible life. And he goes back home, and what does the father do? Makes a feast because my child is home. I want you to think of our life and our experience as human beings in the same lens. Because of our limitation in our understanding and I'd say our conditioning, you go through life with a very limited eye. So the journey you guys are and all of you are on, this particular journey, is to walk you back into that identity with where home truly is. And you come from the land of milk and honey. You come from the same energetic print with God. There really is no limitations. And it's almost freeing when you can recognize the power that exists within you. But we'll know how to get there. So let's go back to the basics. I hope that gives a bit of an insight. Yeah, I think we'll cover it more as we go deeper. Now, someone might ask me, how do I change my life? How do I move into abundance? You know? Let's start with the basics. We've understood, is there anybody who is struggling with the concept of energy as the building block of matter? Right? Once you understand you're an energetic being, then you move into abundance by mastering energy. So let's cover, how do you master energy? There's something I forgot to mention when I was showing you guys the double split experiment. When you are observing this double split experiment, you see the two forms of light as they go through the slit. When you're not observing, those lights, you see how you think it's here and here? Those lights align all over. The conclusion quantum physics arrived when they did this experiment is that infinite possibilities exist. The experience you have in your reality is shaped by what you are observing. Because remember, the light particle went across this entire thing when they are not observing. But when they bring it back to observation, it splits into two. Now, this was proof enough that infinite possibilities exist. And so do infinite realities exist. If you're an energetic being having a human experience, you need to understand that the reality you are experiencing is one of millions. And every single day, every single moment, you're actually shifting in different timelines. They happen so fast, you're not even aware of it. Have you ever looked at something that happened in your past or a relationship or a setup you are in and you totally can't relate? You feel like that is what? Wait, what? And it's usually because you are literally living a completely different reality from that. It might be like a memory at the back of your mind, but you've quantum jumped so many times that you don't even recognize that version of you that existed in that particular timeline. This is the nature of what we do every single day. Even as you sit here, by the time you leave, when you go to bed, you are literally moving through different realities. But since they're stacked up against each other, you don't even notice that is happening. Now, one way to master energy is to recognize, number one, the infinite possibilities and realities that exist in the universe that we live in. And you get to move to the reality you want to experience based on, number one, where is your attention and your awareness? We've just proven that when you're paying attention, light behaves differently. It means reality is bended through the gift of your presence. So, ask yourself today, If I want to shift into abundance, if I want to have more out of life, then I have to master energy. Step number one of mastering that energy is where my attention and my awareness flows. Where is your attention and your awareness? And I think most of you have noticed this even in the process, because when you decide you want something, for example, you decide this year I want to do some construction, you'll realize suddenly everything about construction will come to you. Whether you are driving somewhere on the road, you know, whether you're scrolling through social media, you're like, what is steel doing on my timeline? This happens when you want to think of your dream car. Think of like your red, you've heard of the red car theory. Such that when you think of a particular car that you want, or whether it's a red Mercedes or something, that is the day you realize Nairobians drive red Mercedeses. This is something you never noticed before, but now you're seeing it everywhere you go. This comes down to how our reality works. Whatever you pay attention to, that is what you get to experience more of in your reality. Our brain has now been proven not to even see what is there. Your brain sees what it preconceives. And this is why sometimes I feel like we really need to look at our current education systems. I feel like these lessons, if they could find a way to incorporate them from a young age through the education systems, not only would we be better for it, but we'll be churning out new generations of humanity that understand how nature actually works and how our universe works. Now, how do you master your attention and awareness? I'm going to give you guys an exercise. And especially if you didn't raise your hands when you said you're in control of your thoughts. You're going to choose two things that you want to start paying attention to. This could be your dream car and maybe a set of flowers. And you're going to shift between these two things every now and then. So you're going to tell your mind, think of the dream car. And then when your mind thinks of something else, you bring it back to the dream car. Then you're going to tell your mind, now let's think of maybe a flower. If you're a gent, just pick anything. I know that would be very odd for gents. Pick anything on the second beat that you want to focus on. Then you pay attention to that. You want to do this experiment in silence, and sometimes even in darkness if possible. So you shift on one thing and shift to the next. Shift to your dream car and shift to the flower. And you do this by watching your mind. Anytime your mind deviates, come back. You need to do this until you get to a point where you've mastered your mind, that when you tell your mind, now let's stick to just the dream car, your mind will stick there. This is a training exercise on how to control your thoughts in the process. Because your attention and awareness often comes down to where your thought process is at. That is number one. Number two is perception. People don't recognize that perception is reality. I find this very interesting. I'm an entrepreneur, and when you're running an organization, it means you're managing different sets of people. You're managing not just your in-house, but you're managing clients. This is something people are not aware of. You're managing clients and clients' emotions too. Now, I think my biggest lessons in perception came down through my career. How you perceive things create your reality. This is one of those things that was so hard for me to accept. Because I was like, what do you mean what I perceive creates reality? But how you perceive things creates reality. This is very scary for people who are married, by the way. Yeah? Because imagine you perceiving that your spouse could be unfaithful. You don't realize that you're actually creating that reality. That is scary. But now leave alone the relationship. Now look at it through your life, through your lens. Whatever you perceive to be true, with uttermost faith, has to come to reality. So one way of mastering energy is changing your perception through things. You need to be the kind of person that goes through life almost in a delusional manner. What do I mean? Most of us take the evidence in our immediate reality to be what's true for us. Now I'm gonna teach you one way to hack life. And it might not be easy to arrive here, but I want you guys to start practicing it and see how your life changes. And this stems down from the truth that everything you're already experiencing is the past. So whatever, for you to even arrive and sit here with me, you might not notice, but this is something you created back. It's now just showing up in your experience. Now, most of us take this immediate experience to be the truth of what's going on in our life. So you get a particular level of maybe disappointment, you take it to be the truth. You don't understand that this is a creation in the past, even if it seems immediate. It is no longer what's happening in the now. It's something you created in the past. So every single moment you have a chance to create a new reality, but you have to come back to the present moment now. Now, when you tend to perceive your immediate reality as evidence of your life for yourself, you're always going to shoot yourself in the foot, because your truth is coming from the past. So you have to learn to look at everything in your immediate environment, in this physical reality, like something that holds no authority over you. I've been in rooms whereby you get really bad news. You get the kind of news that shatters your heart. And I've managed to create a different outcome for myself. Maybe not in that particular moment, just based on practicing this. So whatever I try to teach this audience and whatever I try to teach is always based on the things I've learned through also personal experience. They're not just things that I read through a book. Now, how you perceive things creates your outcomes. This is another way of mastering energy. So challenge yourself the next time you get news that is not very impressive, or the next time you see something in your immediate environment that is not very good. You have to recognize that how I perceive this situation is creating what's gonna come up next. So you need to first of all start by understanding that this is the past, I can create a different outcome. And this could be in professional, personal life. How you perceive things is always creating reality. So there's no harm in leaning towards positivity in whatever you experience in your life, because you understand that in that moment you're creating that reality through your perception. Another way to master energy is the art of slowing down. It's not very common, and I don't think people teach about this enough. But have you ever walked into a room and you can tell? I work in corporate, so usually there's a lot of corporate dynamics in certain rooms. So I can almost always tell who is in charge of the decision making by how relaxed they are in formal setups. They are not trying to follow a script. They are not rushing to get to the outcome. One of the ways that you get to master energy is your ability to slow down. And people think it's counterproductive. And they don't understand that you actually need to always slow down to cut space. What does slowing down look like? This looks like, one, being in charge of your reactivity. Most of us are so reactive, but it's the nature of our world. Yeah, you're so reactive. You feel like you need to have an immediate opinion. You need to address something immediately. You feel like you need to do certain things immediately. If you learn to slow down and come back within, the answers find you. We are not meant to chase answers. answers should be able to find you. I do this with, with the universe on most mornings. Yeah. I'll wake up and I'll make an intention and I'll go about my day forgetting I made that particular intention. And usually an answer will find me somewhere in the course of my day when I was not even thinking of getting that particular answer. And this comes from identifying with the true identity. That's why we started with identity, because once you know that you're not this physical reality, you know that your higher self, which is connected to the creator's source, the source energy, the quantum field, always knows the next best possible avenue for you. So even in the process of rushing, it comes from an insecurity that you're not in control. So you feel like I need to control things to make them happen. One way of mastering energy is realizing that things are always unfolding for you, even if you don't see it yet. So if you can always relax back and come back within, the answers find you, they come to the surface. Another way of mastering energy which is one of my favorites, it's alchemy. Now, most of you don't know this, but alchemy actually began in Africa. Alchemy is, when you read the history of alchemy, alchemy was a process of turning lead into gold. And it originated from Africa. So we are literally, our ancestors knew alchemy, not just in the changing of lead into gold, but our ancestors practiced the spiritual essence of alchemy, which was transmutation of energy. We know that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So how do you transmute it? The truth is, we live in a world, because you live in your physical body. You might not be the physical body, but you live in your physical body. You live in a world that is always destabilizing us in one way or another. Almost like checking out equilibrium amongst all of us. And you're always going to arrive at certain energy blocks. You're always going to arrive at something that either brings negativity, or you're going to arrive at a point whereby you don't feel so much in control of your thoughts or your emotions. You have to master alchemy. Alchemy is a process of transmuting that energy. You do this, first of all, by understanding that there's something we call a quantum gap. The quantum gap exists between anything that is a stimuli, so anything that triggers you, and your reaction. Most people are not aware there's a gap, because this thing happens in like microseconds. So most of the time when you find things that trigger, the reason most of us are very impulsive and reactive is because you don't understand that there's a gap in there that you can create using. So alchemy is starting to understand that anytime something triggers me or something, I have a negative feeling, I don't need to fight it. I just need to take a step back and utilize that quantum gap to create a different reality. How do you do this? You do this by, first of all, realizing that whatever you're experiencing in that moment, it's an illusion, it's not reality. Either it's the past, but it doesn't dictate the future for you. So even if it looks negative, you don't take it as truth in your experience. So you take a step back and you get to plant a new seed. So for every stimuli, for everything that triggers you, I want you the next time something gets on your nerves or something triggers you, I want you to think, smile. And why do I say smile? The universe is giving you an opportunity to create in that moment. Someone's like, yeah, it's your doorstep, you can create. I mean, I got on your nerves, I wanted to get on your nerves. So you might as well create something out of it. So that quantum gap is one way that you get to transmute energy. So something comes negative at you, they find that you're not the average human being, so there's a block. And that block comes from you understanding, I don't need to react immediately. I can take a step back and be in control and take a different channel of thought or a different channel of emotion. That is one. Another way of alchemy is something you call becoming or embodiment. You know how when you plant a seed on the ground, I'm trying to be a farmer lately. And so when you plant a seed on the ground, do you pace around to wait for that seed to sprout? But that is what we do as human beings. Because the thing is, every single time you aim to create a different outcome for yourself, most of us are our first biggest enemies, because not only don't you believe it, but every single time you stay in the way of it. So you block it. One thing that I want you guys to remember is that if you are consciousness and you're that spiritual essence having a human experience, not only don't you have limitations, but every single thing you'd want to experience already exists, just in different realities. So even when you say we are creating a different reality, it's never that you're creating it from scratch. You're simply shifting your frequency to match the frequency of that which you want. Because it already exists. It's not something new, it already exists. So there's a very simple explanation to this. You know a dead body turns into ash. Why is that? Why does a dead body, which has no activity going within it, turn eventually into ash? Everything in the universe vibrates at certain frequencies, including you and I. Everything in the universe, this is why Nikola Tesla was talking about, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, you've got to understand energy. Every single thing vibrates, and that is why things change form, including water changes form into steam. That same steam can later turn on to ice. Now, if everything in the world vibrates at certain frequencies, including you and I, it means if I want to shift into the reality of that which I want, then I simply need to look at the vibration I'm emitting from within me. Now, your vibration is what dictates what you get to attract or repel in your reality. You get to move into that. Think of it like our world today, we pay fare. I don't know how you guys got here. If you got here through a cab, even if you're driving, you fueled your car. If you got here through a car, you paid the cab guy fare. For us to move from one point in this world that we live in, you have to pay a form of transport. If I want to fly anywhere, I have to pay transport, right? Now, the universe, I need to understand that money is a creation of humanity. The universe has its own, what do you call it? I'm trying to get the right word. The universe has its own way of exchange. And that is the language of the universe, which is energy. So it doesn't matter the money you have in the world. You can't corrupt how the system works on a universal lens. So if you're someone who wants to move from one reality to the other, the fare you're going to pay in between here is the vibration, the frequency you are at. This is what moves you from here to here. So you can never be the person that moves to point B, the person that is living your ideal life, if your frequency is still aligned with your older life. You'll always fall back. You've seen people build empires and come back crumbling down. You've seen people win the lottery and they cannot seem to hold on to that money. It's because your frequency can't allow you to stay at that particular juncture. So one of the ways in alchemy that you get to optimize your life is to be very aware of your frequency. And this is easy when you come back to something called the now, which is something I want to break down to you guys. To alchemize situations in your life, you have to come back to the now. As I talk to you guys in this minute, there's a million pieces moving around, for example, in my life or your life. But the reality is, have you ever been in the past? We talk of the past or the future, but at any particular moment in your life, have you ever lived in the past? You can think of it, But what do you get to experience on the daily? Hmm? The present. The only time that exists is the now. This is another concept that if you feel you're struggling with, I'll explain, but feel free to answer to ask because people struggle with it a lot. There's no point in your life that you've ever lived in the past. You can remember it, but you've always lived in the now. Now, I told you I'm going to back up all these things with science. There is something called Einstein's theory of relativity, which tries to uncover the nature of the relationship between space and time. And the two are actually connected. So you find that, for example, time is not as we know it. Time can bend, time can be carved. We all have this illusion of time like it's something constant. Time is what enables us to experience life like we know it in this human body. It's a creation that exists for us to be able to experience what we're currently experiencing in this particular physical form. But in reality, time does not exist as we know it. So if that is one of if that is one of the illusions, then it means the only time that you are ever creating is from the present moment. So you have to be the kind of person that if you want to alchemize your life, you have to learn how to be present, come back in the present moment. This is what people teach through meditation. When you hear people talking about meditation, it's just a way to bring you back in the present moment. But sometimes I think we also limit ourselves when you talk about meditation, because most of us are not even aware that we are always meditating as we do different things. Your ability to be fully engrossed at any particular moment is a form of meditation. I experience it a lot when I'm doing my writing sessions in the morning hours. Yeah, that's always about every day from about 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. That is my personal session for my writing hours. Now, there's a point you get to when you're a writer, I call it the flow state, whereby everything else becomes irrelevant. I don't even notice time is passing. If my alarm doesn't tell me it's time to start getting ready for work, I don't even notice it. And when you've gotten to that level, it makes you have a totally different relationship with time. Because time as we know it is also one of those illusions in this physical reality. Why I'm trying to teach you guys this, because if you can understand that time is a creation of yourself and it's not something that you need to be a slave to, you need to be the one that is a master of time. Most of us are slaves of time. If you're someone who's not, for example, in control of their schedules, you're a slave of time. If you're someone who has not mastered certain levels of freedom in different areas, you're a slave of time. If you want to alchemize your situations, you need to recognize how to understand concepts like, for example, time in a different lens. I just realized I went into a very deep topic at a very superficial lens. I'm going to confuse some of you, so let's stick to what's a bit understandable. We are talking about becoming. Becoming is one form of alchemy that if you can learn to utilize it, you'll really expand your life. Becoming is choosing to embody the reality you want to experience. So if I want, for example, more money, I get this question a lot. Human beings are obsessed with money. Mm. If I want to experience more money in my life, I have to show up like the person who has money. And someone might say, why are you faking it? Faking it is very different. You have to embody for you to change your life. What is embodying? Embodying is starting from the end goal. Now, if you want more money, I'll ask you, if you're to get more money, what would you do with your money, Happiness?
I would get my dream house.
Your dream house. Beautiful.
I'll build the foundation that I want.
Okay, good. If you had to get your dream house, what do you get from having your dream house?
The beauty.
What did it make you feel like?
The beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Comfort.
Comfort? Beauty, comfort? Would it make you feel elated? Would you be happy if you had your dream house?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you be at ease?
Yes.
Anything else?
My kids would love it also.
You have babies.
Yes.
1 or 2?
2.
How old?
5 years and 1.5 years.
I would not guess. You look so young.
Thank you.
Now, I'm asking happiness that question because embodiment comes from the end goal. You have to ask yourself, if I'm to get these particular things that I want, what would that feel like? Why am I saying this? There is a shortcut. And the shortcut simply means start having those internal feelings within you. You're an energetic being. You can move mountains overnight. There are no limitations. So you have to train your body to experience those emotions before you arrive there. That is how you bridge that gap between your realities. And that is what's called true embodiment. So you have to show up every day and aim to experience what that would look like. So it's not a matter of faking, it's a matter of living in the end. And when you start practicing this, it's only a matter of time before you realize this gap closed and you look back and how did it close? And things start happening in your life that you can't explain. Sometimes we think, for example, you need more money. Most people don't realize that money is also a byproduct. I was telling this to my team the other day. We were having a general meeting. So one of the things we were discussing, I was asking them what is their relationship with money? Because what do you look at money as? At the end of the month, you're on the payroll, we pay you. When you hold that paper, whether it's $100 bill, whether it's $1,000 bill, whether it's Kenyan shillings, someone told me you need to start refreshing Kenyan shillings. And I'm like, please don't take me back, don't take me back. I've already worked to get to the dollar point. Yeah. What I'm saying is you can hold that 1,000 Kenyan shillings. And while you're looking at the paper, the truth is, the paper is the form of exchange. When I pay you that money, there is labor that was, for example, involved. That was the exchange that we actually did. The paper is a way, when you look at the history of money, you find it very interesting because initially people used to barter trade. And then there was some inconveniences whereby I don't want what you want, what you have, yet I want something else. So they had to bring up this form that at least unifies the exchange. That is how money was introduced. And for the longest time, money had to be backed with gold. We've just moved into a world right now whereby that backing is no longer happening, which makes me realize we are going to change the money system very soon. So you guys, you need to start looking into that on your financial aspects. We are moving into more decentralized money systems. The earlier you get into it, the better. Otherwise, 10 years from now, you're going to say, oh my goodness, I thought that thing was just passing by. How? It's like people ignore the internet. Yeah. So look at the centralized money system. This looks like blockchains. Yeah. All that new tech right now with money, it's where the future is headed. There's no escaping it. So the earlier you start getting into it, the better. Now, what was I saying? Money is a byproduct of something else. If you want more of it in your life, you need to start operating from the end meal. So start experiencing what that would feel like. Teach your body those emotions. That's all right, I want to teach you guys something about life, and I'm going to challenge probably how you've experienced it so far. If I told you this was a game, someone who's gone through a lot of problems would really cast me out. Like, what do you mean it's a game? It's a game and we're all playing it. I want you to ask yourself, what level are you playing this game? I promise you, the minute you start looking at life as a game, how you move through life and your experiences completely shift. Why? A game has different characters. A game has the character in the video game who is moving around, maybe shooting or something. And then there's someone who is playing that video game. So the character in the game thinks they are in control, but they're actually being controlled by the person who is playing the game. But even the player of the game thinks they're in control. But the player of the game cannot go to the next level if they don't hack the levels of the programmer. So you can only go to the next level as per the programmer's bandwidth in terms of creativity or in terms of intelligence. The programmer is the one who sets the rules of the game. You have to ask yourself if life is this game, because the truth is, it is. You are. Sometimes I think our critical thinking reduces over time due to our education system. Puss, what is it? You're hungry? What's up? Now, you know, it's actually talking. If you are this, look at it this way. We live in a floating ball of fire. Surrounded by fire, sorry. We live in a floating ball in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by this fire that apparently if today it's to not exist, we all die because the sun gives life to everything. Like there's nothing normal about the world that we live in or about you and I. I'm very passionate about the human body. When you learn about the human body and how everything is coordinated within you, how in a matter of microseconds, 1,000 neurons are fired within your brain and your body just for communication, you realize there's nothing normal about life or our body. So you're literally this piece of magic experiencing life in this dimension. You have to choose to treat it as a game, surely, if you want to enjoy it. And I say this because whether you're aware of it or not, you're either playing the game or the game is playing you. Because the truth is, for us to come into this existence and have this experience, it's actually a game. Now you have to learn and master the rules of the game to be a step ahead. But the game will always eat you alive. How do you do this? Are you the programmer or you're the character? The programmer is Thiongo. The programmer is the person that was observing the thoughts at the door. That is the awareness. Are you the programmer or you are the character? You have to choose to move towards your true identity, which is the programmer, because the God essence lives within you. So you have to recognize that I have the ability to create a new reality, a new outcome in my life. Now, we've understood that our thoughts, have you guys, I'm sure online you've seen people saying your thoughts are creating your reality. You've understood that your thoughts create your reality simply because they affect your emotions. I need to understand that emotions are energy in motion. That is your interaction with the immediate magnetic field around you. So your emotions are dictating how you experience life and what you attract and what you create. Now, out of the basics, I want us to delve a bit deeper. I feel like the class is ready for this level. when we were talking about Jambi, when you asked about that projection of consciousness, it's when you understand that concept fully, you'll arrive at the juncture that you create your reality, right? But the truth is, you always have help. And the help you have goes beyond you. And what do I mean the help you have goes beyond you? Today I want to teach you guys a sixth form of sense that we all have that we don't utilize. And that is your intuition. As we grow up, we've been trained to put our intellect on a pedestal. And so we've forgotten one of the major gifts that we have in this realm, which is your intuition. Your intellect is so limited because your intellect is based on the wisdom and the knowledge in this physical reality. Your intuition, the reason why people don't pay much attention to it, is because your intuition is grounded more deeper into the universal consciousness. So what your intellect thinks is actually smart is like a drop in the ocean, and the intuition is the ocean. So when you move through life putting only your intellect on a pedestal, I need you to realize that you're not even utilizing a quarter of your abilities. Why is this? I want to tell you a story I recently experienced. I was jogging in my neighborhood. I live in Windy Ridge in Karen, the other side. So I decide to, this particular evening I'm from work, I decide to change. I go for my usual jog. Something I do maybe twice a week at most. And I get this sudden urge to take a different path, you know? So usually because I'm at this level in my journey, whenever I get strong urges, I don't ignore them because I know there's something in store. I'm going to teach you guys how to arrive there. So I decide to take a different path. Now, I always have my pods on. So I had my pods on and suddenly I hear a man tap me on my shoulder. And now it's about almost 7-ish in the evening. Although our neighborhood is pretty safe, there are always cops patrolling, and if you're within the estates, either way. So I turn and it's a guy. And for a second, I really don't know what this is about, because how do you stop me on my jog? So I remove my AirPods and I find out, I ask him, what is it? And he says, hello, hi. And he seems very meek. And I ask him, how can I help you? And he says, nilikuja. Does everybody get, who does not understand Kiswahili here? Let me tell you, I do my diaspora masterclasses and sometimes I forget. Yeah, and I start using Kiswahili and I realize, oops, we have an international audience. So this guy tells me, aki nilikuja kibarua hii area yenu leo, mwenye nilikuja kwake kazi, apparently I think they had gone for holidays or something. They are not around. So hata sikuwa na transport and I felt, nilisikia tu kukuuliza, sijui mbona, juu nimepita watu wengi sana, lakini something told me nikuulize, kama unaweza nisaidia. Nikamuliza nyumbani ni wapi, I think akasema Kawangware or something. I don't know what he mentioned. Nikamuliza transport ni how much, and then he gave me a figure. The good thing is I had my phone. So I do a transfer for him, which includes at least something, you know, when someone asks you that kind of help, you try not to just give the transport, because this is clearly someone who is a man, probably is going to go back home to a family who are expecting, he's been working the whole day. So there's something you're bringing on the table, right? So I decide to send him something substantial, and he can't stop saying thank you. And I'm like, you're welcome, it's okay. So he goes ahead of me and I can see him almost jumping, thanking God, right? In that scenario, this man thinks I saved him for that evening. What he does not realize that he had help before I showed up. How did he have help? That strong urge he felt to approach me for help. He could have approached anybody. Our neighborhood is full of white people, and you're recording me. I'm not saying they're mean, but they tend to mind their businesses a lot, yeah? And they tend to think a lot of black people are out to extort them, right? So the fact that he felt that urge and approached me, he does not realize that his intuition already gave him help before even I gave him help. And I know, because I teach this, I know that my intuition to guide me on a different path knew somebody needs help on that path. Could you kindly take it, right? So in his eyes, his help might have come from the money I sent him. But the truth is, he had a more important help. That if this help didn't coordinate this meetup, the money could have never arrived. Neither could he have my contact, because I told him, call me, we'd see how we could help you get something to work with, right? So what I'm trying to teach you guys is that every single day in your life experience, you have a helper whose eyes go beyond this dimension and whose eyes goes beyond your intellect or your knowledge. And that is your intuition. Your intuition is this gift that is God-given. I think that is the way God ensured. Even if you're going to experience life through a physical human form, I'm going to give you help. But it has to be upon you to take this help. Because remember, you come into this reality to experience life as a human being. So your intuition will never force down anything down your throat. But it will always guide you in the right direction. Now, most of us are not even aware that's what's called divine partnership. Most of us go down and kneel and pray, and then God answers your prayer in the next 10 minutes by guiding you through your intuition. And then you ignore it. And I think sometimes you really frustrate God. We just don't know it. And it's partly not our fault. We've been conditioned to only utilize our 5 senses. So most of you don't even know how to listen to that inner voice, that inner guide, that thing that is nudging you. Yet, that is your eyes beyond yourself. Now, if you can learn to master your intuition, I promise you there is really nothing you can't achieve out of this lifetime. Why? Because your intuition is always a step ahead. Your intuition is your higher self that walks with you every single day. And it will show up by either having a very strong urge to do something. I woke up on Monday and I was very conflicted. I felt like I didn't want to go into work, and I felt very unsettled in my soul. And I hop in the car and I decided to take this drive that I ended up in Nanyuki with, randomly on a Monday. And sometimes I do those things because they open up ways in things that I would not naturally do. Divine partnership is when I could lift this bottle right now. But if I was to hold this bottle for 20 hours, my arm will start to ache. Now I want you to imagine if you had someone who not only could hold that bottle for you, but was constantly pouring for you anytime you needed water. That is the kind of help you have. But we've not been trained to listen to that inner help. And people think your intuition will show up in the big things. Your intuition shows up even in the small things. Any small problems you always have, your intuition is always trying to figure out, how do I get you out of this? And it will nudge you to just take the next immediate action. Now, if you're going to create a different outcome for your life, I promise you it will be much easier if you learn to work with your higher self, which is partly your intuition. So learn to listen to that inner voice within. And someone told me, now how do I listen to my intuition? Because especially men, not just men, but a lot of people who are not in touch with themselves struggle to listen to their intuition because they confuse that noise in their mind to be their intuition. You master your intuition and you learn how to go back within. So start practicing a bit of solitude as an individual. I know the people who don't know how to stay alone or rather come back within, but you have to learn how to take at least 15 minutes out of your day and get rid of all distractions. If you're someone who's constantly always consuming, for example, you're constantly scrolling, You are involved in all topics, whether it's political, you know, you're always in celebrity gossip, for example. You just have your mind consumed with so much. You're going to struggle to listen to your intuition, because your intuition will never fight for a voice. Your intuition's job is to guide you. It's a gift from God. So it's guiding you, but you have to choose whether you want to take it or not. So you master your intuition and you learn how to go back in silence and learn how to empty not just your mind, but move from your mind and back into your body. So start by just take 10 minutes out of every day, sit in complete silence, get rid of your phone, get rid of the television, sit in that silence with yourself. It will be so uncomfortable in the beginning. Over time, as you do it, you realize you can go another 12 minutes, you can go 15 minutes, you can go 20 minutes. I think I've gotten to a point where I can go a solid 1 hour without feeling the urge to be entertained or be distracted. But it takes time to get there. The minute you can do this even for just 10 minutes a day, you realize how much power you start having over your mind and your emotions. Almost like automatically that happens. So you start now becoming more of a master in your life, a master of your thoughts, a master of your emotions, even a master of time. Now, the divine partnership that you do with your intuition is something that I want you guys, even if you feel like it's hard, I want you to start practicing it. And start with the small things. So if you're going to make a decision next time, even this week, over the weekend, I want you to follow the decision based on what you think your intuition is guiding you. Your intuition will always guide you towards the things that flow from your heart most of the time. So your intuition, you'll find it's very peaceful. Your intuition is always guiding you towards things that are expansive, things that make you happy. Your intuition is always guiding you towards more of a play rather than work. When I say play is your experience through life, I'm not saying you don't work. It's how you view life. So your intuition is always guiding you towards, like, I have the big load of the work. Your work is to just elevate your frequency. This means ensure it's elevated emotion. So you're not really down here as more matter, you're more energy. There's something changing in the world. I don't know if you guys have noticed. There's a balance coming into the world. And I think it's going to open people's eyes, and we have to change how we've done things for the longest time. So we were all raised with parents, or rather environments, that really reminded us how tough life is. And how you need to struggle. You know, things don't come easy. Put in the effort. Yeah, that is the only way you get an outcome. Let's talk about effortless living. Because if you can learn effortless living, you'll realize where also your true power lies. Effortless living is when you realize that it's not about how much pressure and effort you exert. It's about alignment. So someone can exert all the pressure they want, and it's because they've been trained and conditioned that is how they get maximum output. But the truth is, if that is the belief you go into with this year, and it's how you want to create more abundance for yourself, you will create that abundance, yes. But it will always be tied down to exerting a lot of effort. Remember we said when you're starting these sessions, perception is reality. So if you perceive that life has to be tough, and it has to be a struggle, and it has to be a force, and you need to keep chasing, that is going to be the experience in your reality. So for everything you want in your life, you'll have to go through that process of struggle for you to get it. Because your perception believes it to be the truth. Effortless living is understanding that we are moving into an era whereby it's about alignment. Alignment looks in different ways. Alignment starts with the first session that I was teaching you guys, which is mastering energy. I want to start with the basics when it comes to alignment. Now, remember when I told you our self-concept shapes what we think is possible? So, most of us, even in our adulthood, because we've been trained and conditioned in certain ways, you move through life doing things based on what society has told you has the best of returns. So whether it's the career path you choose, whether it's the relationships you settle in, you do that based on what you think is good for how you look like in society, or what alignment stems first of all from authenticity. You have to figure out what comes natural to you and what do you like. What do you even enjoy? I was doing some maths with our accountants, and it made me realize how the world is changing. Because for every $1 million bob that comes through the company, it takes a team of about a minimum of about 5 for that money to come through the team. And this minimum of 5 people will still take like some time. It won't be in a day, it won't be in 2 days, maybe a week or something for that particular. And I was making them laugh because I decided that my personal endeavors, when they're making payments, they come through the company accounts, so that at least they can help me with the accounting bit of it, and I don't want to get into any tax problems. And I didn't want to pay somebody else on the side. So when they're doing my maths for the things that I do individually, that is money that I make in a span of, let's say, hours, right? And it took one person's labor. If you told the Julian that I am today 5 years ago that was possible, I look at you and think you're actually crazy. But I'm giving this example because I need you guys to understand that you have to start by changing what you think you know. You want to move into abundance of money, abundance of anything, you have to start by challenging what you think you know. Look at your belief system so far. Do you believe that you need to overextend yourself for you to make a particular amount of money? Because believe it or not, that is going to be your experience through life. But once you start shifting your mindset to recognizing, let's say I just want to make, let's say, a minimum. I just want to make a minimum of like $1 million shillings a month. I think that will sustain my life. And you move from that perspective, and you don't limit yourself on how you get this money. Your mind starts to expand. Because now you realize this money does not even have to come to me in a span of a month. This is money that I can make in a span of hours or days. But you have to start putting your mind at that juncture whereby it's questioning, it's giving these loopholes for what's possible for you. So alignment stems, first of all, from doing things that you love from your heart. And I think this is now being proven because they found authenticity to be one of the strongest emotions ever. Another form of mastering alignment is I don't know if you guys have heard of knowing. I always say, do you believe in God or you know God? Where do you stand?
Knowing, experiential.
Knowing. Because knowing always holds weight. Knowing will always hold weight rather than believing. So even as much as you try to shift your belief system, which is important, alignment comes when you now know. You no longer need Julian to prove to you that you are not this physical essence. You know it. There's a part deep inside you that knows it. You've experienced it because you know of situations that you can't say how you got out of. You know, in your darkest days, you managed to come back up. There are situations you managed to alchemize. Knowing is different from believing. You see how you look at a tree and you know it's a tree. You don't need to go through the thought process of knowing, of saying, now, do you guys think this is a tree? You know it's a tree. Knowing, guys, is the shortcut to abundance. Knowing is when you arrive at complete, absolute truth of your identity and the power within you. When you know, there is no room for doubt. When you know, even if things in your physical reality don't send back the information you need, you know. I experience this all the time because people think that when when you've gone ahead in this journey, people think you don't go through your own challenges. But every single person always arrives at their own juncture of challenges. You have to always bring back your awareness into the knowing. So consciously utilize that front part of your brain that we said is not very automatic. Bring yourself into the awareness. Remind yourself of what's true and what's not true. One of the truths that you have to know is that there are no limitations. There are no limitations. The only limitation that exists is in your conditioning. When you know, for example, I know we teach about affirmations, and I'm sure you guys have learned them online all the time. I want you guys to understand that affirmations are a way to help you arrive at a point of knowing. And you don't have to constantly affirm something once you know it. And this is because your higher self shows up to you in a form of intuition. Your higher self does not need you repeating yourself. This is something I feel you guys underestimate. Your higher self does not need you repeating yourself over and over again. You simply need to nudge it to the direction of what you want to experience. So let's say you have the happiness saying a dream home. So happiness makes a point in her mind about her dream home. Happiness makes sure her body experiences what that is like, the emotions of that. So she does not have to live every single day through the mind in that particular affirmation, but her body, which is her magnetic and her energetic footprint, needs to live through that. So your body lives through that, through your frequency. It's not something that you have to constantly go back into thought and think about. Just make sure as you're going about your day, you're living in the emotional state of your ideal person. That's all that's required of you. Most of us try to worry about the how. So for example, you set a target, I want to, either you want to have your soulmate this year or you want to make the most money this year. You don't have to constantly live in your head in that point. That is underestimating your higher self. You simply need to embody the frequency of that emotional state. So how does someone who is loved show up? How is someone who's cared for shows up? How is someone who is pampered shows up? How is someone who's living in their dream home? How do they show up? They wake up in the morning and they're grateful. They're grateful for that experience. They're grateful for their day. They're grateful to the people and different aspects, but you have to live in the emotional state of that end means. That is what it means to believe in alignment. Another form of living in alignment is surrender. Resistance is the cause of human suffering. You see, most of us suffer because you think you're fully in control. So you let every circumstance you go through dictate your emotions. I know people who, when they don't have money, they can't be happy. They're the most irritated, you know. They're so they're so irritated. They can even barely smile. Like literally, that is how some people are. And when you're that kind of person, you will struggle to make your ideal amount of money. Because the truth is, every day when you shop like that, you keep stretching the distance between you and that particular reality you want to live in. Because you put money on a pedestal such that your internal state is affected by how much money you have. You know? I can always tell when someone has touched a level of money. Like I can tell Njambi, you've touched quite some money, yeah? I'm right? Yeah. Now, compare your different emotional states. No, when at one particular time when you earned your highest amount, for example, or when you've ever had a figure in the bank account that excites you, does that make a difference?
No, not so much.
When you tell this to people who've not made money, it's a concept they can't grasp. Yeah? And I say this because I promise you're going to arrive at a point where one time you're going to look at your account and you'll pinch yourself. Like, no, it's me who has that money. You'll realize it has nothing even to do with you. Yes, it's yours, yes. But it's almost like, okay, this is my reality. It's almost like you're detached from it. Now, imagine people who go through their life, you put money on a pedestal. So your emotional internal state is always dictated whether you have money or not. You don't realize that you're always repelling money in the process. Surrender is one form of alignment. You have to let go of that tight grip you have towards life. Every single day you want to shape how everything pans out. Your job is to only shape your emotional state of being. Everything else in the physical reality, when people ask me, how am I going to get that money? The how is not your business. This is the hack, guys. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Thank you.
The both of you, yeah? I think I've just noticed her right now. You came in a bit late, yeah? All right. The how is not your problem. Most of us are stuck in our current realities because you are overthinking the how. The how is not your problem. Start off thinking of it like God's problem. Start being that entitled with life. You know, start showing up almost like your best version of self. And as long as you stick to a frequency that matches your ideal reality, let the how come to you, because it will. The more you hold on, the more you grip onto it, and you want to figure out, now how are we going to make this money, you know, how are we going to get this soulmate? You're going to run into very different scenarios. Make the intention, live in the end means, let the how find you.
What about the when? Does that apply to the when as well?
That's a good question. It's a good question. The when. If I told you the when could be tomorrow or today, you'd find it a bit impossible, right? Because in your mind, you probably think there has to be some logistics that have to happen. You can have anything you want even earlier than you'd ever expect it. Timeline, as we know it, time is a creation of this dimension. You've just learned that Einstein's theory of relativity shows us that space curves through time. And I'm going to challenge you guys to try read a bit deeper. So when you understand that it's not really the when, all you need to worry about is the alignment. So work on the alignment, and the more aligned you are, the faster it comes in. And if it doesn't come in as fast as you want it, I want you to trust that there's a reason for it. So you have to keep moving through life with this lens that people think it's almost delusional positivity, but you know that it actually works for you because it will work. And when you talk about alignment, is most of us feel the need to exert pressure or control different situations. Start taking a step back. Start leaning more towards the things that fulfill you, and then watch how your life unfolds in different ways. And this might not be easy because our conditioning as society has been this, the hustle culture, the grind culture is something we have to change, guys. And you have to change it because it's not helping anyone. It's exhausting families, yeah? And people are barely making even enough money, and still the preach of the hustle and grind culture is all over. This does not mean you become a lazy person. Sometimes when I teach these things, people take it at face value. It's, you see the lessons, for example, when I was teaching you guys about divine partnership and intuition, you'll realize there's something you call inspired action. So instead of going through your day blindly, simply staying busy, you're doing things that are not even substantial in results. You're going to learn to take a step back and move into inspired action. Inspired action is when now you feel that strong urge. That is your intuition telling you, okay, now let's do this. Let's take this direction. So you move towards life and through your career, doing inspired action, taking those natural prompts from the universe, following your heart. So you're not doing things blindly just for the sake of being productive. This is how we have a society of people who even at the end of the day when they make money, they are not fulfilled. You know, sometimes I meet people in my coaching sessions, because my coaching sessions, especially the ones that we do on the international scale, they're not cheap. They start at about 1,000 USD. That is someone paying you about 130,000 just to have a sit down with you. So you find that by the time this person is coming to such a class, this is not someone who's struggling with money, right? So we uncover certain things, and you find that if you go through life blindly, chasing what is outside of yourself, even when the money comes in, it's never enough. So you have to go back within and tap into that, into the gifts you're given within, such that as you flow into the money, you're still very grounded. Now, when you guys hear alignment, I want to get a few answers from the crowd. What comes easy to you? What do you feel comes easy to you when you do it? Francis?
I do it teaching chat moderation. It's the easiest thing I can do. I can do it for free.
Comes naturally.
I could go to the president and yeah,
Awesome.
it's easy for me.
So sometimes the things that feel easy like that is the universe guiding you towards where your true potential lies, and sometimes also where your true blessings lie. So alignment is leaning towards things like that, things that you find come easy, things that you feel your urge to do. We are moving into a generation that is no longer going to be the hustle and grind culture. We're moving to a generation that is going to make good, solid money, but they're also going to be fulfilled in the process. And if you're someone who is running a business, I'm going to challenge you as an entrepreneur. You have to start creating those systems even for your internal teams. You have to arrive at a point whereby you allow creativity to sit beyond the limited productive lens that we think of it. We are a digital marketing agency, for example, and a lot of our work is creative work. And one thing I've realized is when you try to control creative work, you restrict it. So I have a very brilliant team, but they're only brilliant because they show up with different minds. If they were literally living through my mind or through the operations manager's mind, that would limit them. So I'm telling you guys, if you want to live in alignment, start moving, go back within, find out the things that excite you, the things that fulfill you. Because if you can start from that juncture, and sometimes these might look like small things that you might not even have the bigger picture of an understanding of it, but it might look like the small things that leave breadcrumbs of curiosity inside of you. Like you feel curious through these certain topics, for example. Take that as a hint of the universe guiding you on your least resistant path. Alignment is taking the least resistant path. There's no need for you to wait until your retirement age for you to live an abundant life. Simply because you believe in the life, in the grind and hustle culture that eventually leaves you exhausted in your late years with a very minimal pension. Open up your eyes and your heart to the possibility that you can make any amount of money and you can live any reality if you choose to. But you have to, first of all, let it exist here. Let it live within your body for you to sit in your physical reality.
Before you go to something next,
Yes.
there's something you said.
Mm.
Make the intentions, live in the endings. What was the last? Make the intentions, live in the endings. There was something next you said after that.
You let go, detachment. I don't think I used the term, but you have to let go. The next thing is you have to let go, detachment. You know what that is? When you keep obsessing on certain things, for example, in your mind, what you do is you create a block. The nature of our universe is frequency. It's like waves. Yeah? So think of it like there's free-flowing energy of waves moving across. Now, the reason why we talk about being mindful of your thoughts is so that your thoughts can be able to drop you back into the waves through your emotions. Now, when you're someone who keeps obsessing of even whatever you want or whatever you don't want, when you keep obsessing over it and you don't let it go, you're moving in a very limited forms because you can't collapse back into the waves. You are always this block of energy, of matter. Now, detachment allows you to flow back into the flow of life. If you can learn to flow, your higher self already figured out through your intention. It's already working out the things. So your life is to come back into your life, but live from an elevated emotion state of being. Everything else, it will find you. That is your only job. It's that simple, imagine. And we really complicate it in the process. And sometimes even complicated in the process of we want to control, and we think our execution is what brings it into fruition. And sometimes it's not even your execution in that immediate moment. Sometimes the kind of moves being pulled beyond what you can see. There are always moves being pulled beyond what your physical eyes or you can experience in your reality. So you need to let those moves be made until they're presented to you, because sometimes you're the ones who show up and we lock the door. Don't get it? Through our behaviors. So basically the last point after you do that is the art of detachment. And you know why this works even in, for example, personal relationships. If you're the kind of person that is so attached to somebody, you realize your attractiveness falls down. Yet if you're someone who goes back and is flowing with their life, suddenly that person hits you up, you know? Your attractiveness is like magnetism, which is also the nature of frequency. When you're in flow, you are more in the language of the universe. So it's easy for you to attract anything you want in your outcome. That is where we have to let go. I'm not for the school of thought that we have to constantly reaffirm things. You have to let go. When you are busy doing your other things, your reality unfolds in the process. I don't know if that helps a bit, Francis. think my nini was in the sun. It's overheated. It's not opening, nothing. Thank you. Just stay with it while I shadow a bit. We want alignment. This is one area that I take it quite passionately, because it's, if you can master alignment, then life starts becoming magical. Now, with you, Francis, the answer you gave me was pretty good. I want to get someone else's opinion of alignment from where they sit. Jackie?
Particular time, how do I say it? It comes to me now. It's my everything telling me now. Let's do this. Sit down, concentration. This, not just because I need to deliver this at a certain time. I will do it faster. Because when I'm more slowed down, I find that I am more focused and I deliver more quality. Everything, including even my own personal wins, than when I have the urgency of it is needed somewhere. Yes.
Makes a lot of sense. I find that to be relatable, because I work in the creative field, and I kid you not, you don't want to work with a team that you are constantly always on their necks in the last minute. You want to give them time to do, especially time to at least do things at a particular paces. Because sometimes, you know, we've been taught, let me tell you, we live in a world where we've been taught productivity comes in the lens of doing. And this is our biggest undoing as humanity. Because we think in the process of doing, that is what you call to be productive. Now, let me tell you, as someone who runs an organization, for us, for example, to get on the global stage, for the longest time, I was running that organization on barely breaking even. So yes, you have certain clients, you're making money in the process, right? And you find that you can barely have enough to make ends meet by the end of it all. Now, I think that was me in my comfort zone. The idea for us to go on the global stage came one day when I was on the beach. You know how you lie down, you've been away from work, and literally it's like a solution is just handed down to you. Guys, what I want to teach you from this experience is to learn to let the solutions find you. And most of the time, the solutions won't find you in the process of doing. So most of us think as you continuously do, you're becoming more productive. But if you don't give yourself the lens to be productive in your rest phase, you'll find even your creativity diminishes. Naturally, we just said your intuition has intelligence that goes beyond this world, because it's rooted to that quantum field, it's rooted to God. So that intelligence can only talk to you in the moments whereby, first of all, your nervous system is regulated. This is something, guys, you have to master. With stress, you can't do any of these things you're teaching, because you have a dysregulated nervous system. Your intuition is not going to come and fight for space with all that emotions in your body. It can only come so that the only time you can listen is when you're at a state whereby, first of all, your nervous system is regulated, so internally you're at ease. And second, you are in control of your time. You're not a slave. You're not being a slave to time. third is something that I want to teach you. It will also take a bit 3 tires. When we talk about abundance, I need you guys to understand that abundance, as much as people think it's only financial, abundance comes in different forms. Abundance could be in the form of time, freedom, and all that. So let's look at freedom in the 3 levels as I know it. So freedom level number 1 is the freedom of the mental freedom. This is your ability to think for yourself. A lot of people don't have original thoughts. And it's because our school educational system was churning out not just employees in the process, but was churning out people who can easily take instructions in the process. Especially in this continent. When you look at education system, it never really encourages the thinking outside the box. So number 1 freedom comes down to the mental freedom, which is the ability to think for yourself and think away from the crowd. And this means you think for yourself in all levels, not just relationships, but you have to think for yourself in the financial lens. You can't go with conditioning, societal conditioning around how you think in terms of what works for you in your finances. You have to arrive at an individual level independence. The second level of independence is physical. And the third level of independence is financial. All right. The other side of this information is, have you guys have very good ideas that come to you? You've had a very good idea that just comes to you out of nowhere. That has 3 tires if you want to bring that abundance into reality. Number 1 is recognizing that when an idea comes to you, it stems first of all from the spiritual world. So this idea is trickling down from the collective consciousness as it's coming down. And this is why if you don't act on your idea, I promise you the universe will make sure you'll run into somebody who did it. It will make sure you'll run into somebody who executed your business idea or an idea you had in mind, and you're like, oh my goodness, how? It's because ideas come from the spiritual realm, and as they trickle down, they come into the collective, like we are here. And that idea comes to you because you know why? You have the ability to bring it into fruition. No idea could ever pick you if you don't have the potential to bring it into life. It's us who close the door, and we close the door based on our limitations. So you look at your current circumstances and you think, that is an outrageous idea, I can't do it. Or no, not at the moment. You don't realize that idea found you at the perfect time with all the perfect resources, even if it doesn't look like that in your 3D. Your only job is to move it from that physical reality, from that spiritual dimension into the next dimension, which is the physical dimension. Your idea, your work is to start by executing from where you can. It doesn't mean you have to get the idea fully right. You just need to show the universe, I got the message, yo. We're doing this. You see I'm trying. You see I'm pulling one string or another. That is all you need to do. Because once you start, all the other levels show up in the process. So what you're supposed to do next will come to you in different stages. So whether it's the stage of getting financial resources, it will come to you. But you've got to start, you've got to move it from the spiritual dimension into the physical dimension. And then lastly, you have to understand the mental dimension. This is the dimension that allows the mindset that we are talking about here for things to come to fruition. You have to understand that it's a seed you've planted. It's sprouting. It's only a matter of time. So you have to nurture it through the mental dimension. I'm told that setup is almost ready, so maybe I wrap up this session in the next few minutes. So Sometimes they don't know how to cover these things in that small timeline that we have. I want to teach you guys something before I let you go for break, then you can come back to, oh, someone told me I can never skip this. I probably should address it. I want you to skip it. What is the relationship with nature, if I might ask you? This is a topic that I try to tread carefully because we are now in nature, right? The sun is shining upon us. We are stepping on earth. You see the knowledge I'm giving you guys? I want you to understand that it's not even much. There is so much knowledge within each and every one of you that you can uncover over time. And this thing starts by level of interest, and then these things come to you. And you always have help around you. So there's something I call downloads. Downloads is when you're able to get information straight from that universal or quantum field, straight to you as an individual. Like you literally bypassed all of us, you literally bypassed this dimension and went all the way in that collective consciousness I was talking about. And you're now tapping into the creator energy, the God source. I call them downloads because they're information that you don't need to read in a book. The information that they come naturally to you. And I also think this information lives even within us. In our DNA, there's something they call the junk DNA. I think when a logical person can't explain things, they just brand things with names. So our scientific community cannot explain why a big chunk of our DNA does not seem to be reflect on how they understand it. It's almost like inactive. They call it junk DNA. And I laugh about it because it's like you don't know something, and now to cover yourself up, now we're just gonna name it junk. If it's junk, why does it exist? Why? Yeah. So we've not tapped into knowing even how our ancestral knowledge flows through our DNA. So the experiences, I feel like mothers, I'm not a mother yet, but I feel like mothers understand this at a more deeper level. Because a mother will often see something in their child that stems from them directly. And they can recognize that, how the human DNA works. And I was having this session with one of our clients. They deal with babies and all that. And they were telling me something very interesting, that the mother's nervous system is always inherited by the child. So, for example, I like that you guys are in this session because these are processes of healing. If you don't do the inner work as a woman, you've cast your entire lineage in the process, unknowingly, because your child is gonna have your nervous system. If it's dysregulated, that is what your child is gonna experience. They might not be able to put words to it. They might even think, things seem to be going well in my life, then why do I feel this way internally? They don't understand the connection. And that is why I believe we are all collectively connected. There is no separation. Because when you go down even the history of humanity, we all came down from the same ancestors. Right? The original person, the original human being is a black man. It doesn't matter the race. They all come down to this. So our interconnectedness is also dictating our experience through life. Now, what I was telling you guys about nature is that the life force that lives within the universe, that lives within you and me, also flows through nature. So that is the life force that flows through the plants, the life force that flows through water, the life force that flows through earth. Earth is actually a living thing. Our conditioning around school kind of breaks my heart because school teaches about living and unliving things. So we grow up classifying objects and things as living and unliving. So we really dismiss a lot of intelligence around us because human beings have put themselves on a pedestal. When you start interacting with nature, at a level, at a personal level, you realize human beings, I'm not sorry to say, we are kind of dumb. You know, our ignorance is so much compared to advanced forms of living, which are like plants and all that, trees and all that. And I say this because our existence as human beings is muddled with things like thoughts. The other forms of life just exist in frequency, which is the nature of our universe. So if they just exist in frequency, it means even their understanding of how life in the universe works is at a higher level. So I learned how to tap into different forms of nature at a very early age, but they were all processes. I don't know if you guys have watched the Avatar. When they talk about the Avatar being able to bend water, air, fire, earth, these are not physical representations of doing it. I know in the movie it's physically bending fire. In real life, this is your ability to get downloads from these forms of nature. Downloads that naturally you will not read in a book, downloads that you naturally know you will not get any other advantage. So your ability, for example, to bend water was my first element to be able to tap into the consciousness of water. I always say the example of nobody taught me to swim, for example. One day I'm in the pool and I hear the voice, you can do it. And I'm like, I can't. I'm like, no, you can't actually do it. I only recently read that apparently all babies are born with the ability to swim. We forget in the process. So I was in water as an adult and the water's telling me you can swim. And I'm like, I can't, that's risking. And the water's telling me try. And since I think I've been a bit audacious, I follow the instructions. In 1 hour span, I was on the deep end and back. That is how I learned to swim. And that was one of my eye-openers. Wait, how did water know how to teach me to do this? So water is intelligent. And I love that science came to prove me right, because science has proven that water holds memory. It means water knows way more than is even in our history books, because water has been here since the beginning of time. Now, recently they did one other research that I found mind-blowing. Water was able to mimic an image. So the scientist who was doing this experiment asked water to mimic the image of her best friend. And water mimicked that exact image. So we move through life, even when you're near water bodies, whereby we treat these things like they are not as alive. We really even ruin the earth we live in. Because we look at earth as a dead entity. How can something that is dead give life? And how can it sustain life? You're a mom. You are able to give life because you have life within you. So how is that our food comes from Mother Earth? And the sun provides every single day the energy that feeds us that food. And we look at all these forms of energy and we think they're not alive. They're actually higher forms of energy because they're not tainted with thought like we are. So if you're the kind of person that is able to get out of the school education system conditioning and open up your eyes and open up your heart, these natural sources will start talking to you. You know, this is why you're told, go and ground yourself when you're feeling depressed. Why would you ground yourself on a dead thing? So how is that earth always manages to change your negative electrons with positive electrons? And that is how you feel motivated when you're in nature. That is the feeling you get when you're next to a huge water body where you feel, this gives me life. That's why people go to the beach to decompress. You need to start looking at these life forms with the respect they deserve, because only then will they be open enough to share information with you. So for example, my first eye-opener was the relationship with water. When you're told you're able to bend water through the movie, not your ability to bend water, it's the ability to develop a relationship with these elements, because not everybody knows how to do it, but you do it when you open your heart to the possibility of it. So water, for example, has taught me so much about the womb of a woman, right? So women, for example, with your wombs, it's like an energy portal. You literally build bonds in that body. And it is because of the kind of energetic current that we have at that particular level. Now, would you believe now biology is backing this up? Because in the biophotons, they find that they're mostly concentrated in that fascia I was telling you about, in the energetic centers, what you guys call the chakra systems. So where the chakras are, that is where it's like a vortex of energy. All this information now is being merged from the science level, and it's now coming to the surface. It's a matter of us waking up to the realization of the potential you have as a human being. So learn to spend time in different elements of nature. For example, the sun. I know there's a lot of propaganda about the sun being harmful to your skin. But the sun is the one thing that has enabled a lot of people open up what you guys call the third eye. But it's actually the first eye. Because the sun will give you information that no books will give you. So learn to spend time in the sun and learn to ground yourself in nature. Learn to cleanse yourself in the waters. These things might seem superficial, but when you do them over time, you get to see some results that you normally would not even see with your hard work. You know why? Because your hard work is limited. Yeah? You've got to tap into other elements that elevate your experience through life as we know it. All right, I'm going to teach last, and then you can take a break. We can come back to the business mastery bit. Let's talk about money philosophy. Someone told me you can't miss that topic. Let's talk about money philosophy. Money as a relationship to abundance. You know something I wish someone taught me, because I went through a phase in my second year in campus. My mother went bankrupt. So I am here in second year. I was in second year, third year in campus. The person that sends me money can no longer send me money. And if you're a mother and you've been responsible your whole life, because she was widowed when she was 32. So she raised us, she really worked hard and raised us so comfortably. Now I'm in second year in campus. My dad passed when I was like 10 years. 10. So this woman has raised all of us with so much agility and everything. So I'm in second year in campus, she goes bankrupt. And she raised us very comfortably, I won't lie. We were pretty comfortable. We were not struggling. I wouldn't say we were wealthy, but we were comfortable. So she goes bankrupt, and I don't even know how to survive. You know, people talk about rags to riches. People never talk about having something and going back. Because first of all, even your taste in food is crazy. You see, if someone tells you people eat ugali and skuma, you're like, with what? You know, as in, is that a full meal? Yeah. So it was such an eye opener for me. But I think God allowed that period to happen for a reason. Otherwise, you not have a teacher in front of you. So she goes bankrupt, and I have to figure my way on how I'm going to finish school. Otherwise, I'd have to drop out. My sister had just gone for a master's. She's not a doctor, qualified doctor. She works in Germany. So she had just started her knee on the other side. So she's also stabilizing. And she's the one who calls me and tells me, you know what? I don't think mom is in a good state, and she can't tell us. So figure yourself out. Because we have other two boys who are younger. So we were like, at least let's leave a struggle with those two boys. We're going to figure this thing out. So that is how I had to get out into the world and start hustling at that. I think I was in second year, yes. Because now I had to work in able to pay my fees. And in that process of working, it means I could not attend all classes. So mostly I was always in school. I think in my third year and my fourth year in campus, I was always in school for the cuts and the exams. Because I have to be at work to be able to sustain this. And to make it worse, in second year when I got that first job, it was actually in a different town. So, so you have to go through this process of going to that town for this different work and balancing it here. And I don't know how I managed it all through, but it opened up my eyes to the relationship we have with money. And since then, I've always questioned what makes money. Because I saw money come in, then I saw money go. And I was left picking up the pieces. I'm like, what happens to money? And how is that you can live one good life one day and the next day you're literally struggling? Now, we've been trained to look at money as a physical thing. If you want to master balance, at least get to a point whereby money is not something that really worries you. And I say this as not someone who has so much money, but I say this as someone who I swear there are days I show up at the office and someone gives me a list of things they expect me to pay, and I'm looking at them, who is paying this thing? You know, because when you run an organization, people always assume, and your people assume that you have money that is constantly flowing. You run a business, right? People just assume you have money that is coming in and out. So I show up at my desk and you have this invoice. And you look at it, they're like two. One is 350,000, the other is one. I'm like, who is paying this money? You know? When you understand that money is energy, your relationship with money completely changes. Because you don't look at money in the superficial lens you look at money from. Money is energy in the essence that money will show up when you master it, in the amounts that it needs to show up, in the quantity that you need it to. But you have to let go of your grasp and your ideology of money. Money is energy in the sense that, think of it as a friend that you have. A lot of us, if you're to have a solid relationship with somebody, what is the key quality required? Trust. Trust is required in every relationship. If you break your partner's trust, not only can it take years to build, but it most likely will never go back to where it was before. Even if they love you and completely forgive you, it will never go back to fully where it was. Every solid relationship is based on trust. I want you to think of money as an entity, as a relationship you're having with it. So you don't look at it as this something that you use or uses you. Start looking at money like a friend of yours. Your friend, first of all, is somebody you completely trust. You know your friend, a good friend of yours, will always show up when you need him or her. You need to start moving with money in that same relationship. Trust money to show up when you need it. Step number one. Step number two is when it comes to your relationships, a good relationship does not thrive on control. You want a partner that chooses you and chooses to show up for you. You don't want a partner that you control their movements. You need to learn to not grasp on money the way you do. You need to learn that money flows in cycles. Money comes in and circulates. So even if that money is not in your hand, you need to have the mentality that money is circulating back. And when it's in your hand, don't be so stingy on letting it go. Because in your mind, you think you are losing money. You need to be able to trust that money is going to come back because you guys are besties. So every time you spend money, I want you to release it with a lot of love. Can't wait to see you and probably bring some other friends back. Yeah? You need to start utilizing money in that aspect. Another way that we often mistake when it comes to money is the assumption that it needs to be here fully for you to do whatever it is you want to do. You will wait. You will wait if that is your mentality. Yeah? Money, I talked about this, I think, some time back, and I love the response I got. Money follows purpose. So if you're waiting for you to collect it in huge chunks, then you do something out of it, that is why you'll always wait for that huge chunk to arrive. It will never arrive. Money follows purpose. So if your purpose is your bills for the month, that is the money you'll make that month, because that is what you're telling the universe, this is what I need. We don't live in a wasteful universe. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we don't live in a wasteful universe. Everything has a purpose. Even the beautiful trees you see around have a purpose. Even the flowers, everything has a purpose in the universe. It's the nature of God. That includes you and me. By the time you have your unique fingerprint, there's a purpose. There's a reason why you had to exist in this timeline at this particular time, because there's a purpose attached to you. Now, that is the nature of energy, and you've just said money is energy. So if your purpose for the month is paying your bills, that is the money you're going to make. So you want to make more money, expand your purpose. Don't wait to have the money to expand your purpose. Expand your purpose, and then money trickles in to follow the purpose. So if the purpose For example, right now we are doing some constructions, and I remember the year beginning, and I was a bit scared. Then I had to sit myself in a meeting and say, this is something we've done over and over again. Let's just start. We'll figure how it goes. Let me tell you, when you learn these secrets, and I want you to observe it in every wealthy person you know around you, you'll almost think they live a delusional life. These people always have, for example, constant projects ongoing. It's not because they have that money in the bank account. I know of some wealthy people who are always the brokest. Tell them, like some 10K. Let me tell you, you don't have to be piling money for you to wait to do this thing. Start those projects, and now money will trickle in as per the project you're doing. But if you wait to have the money to do that project, you will keep waiting, because money looks at you and like, you don't have no purpose for me. So how am I coming in? So most of us complain, we're broke. But if I ask you, what is the plan for the money you want? They'll say, I want to buy this and I want to buy that. Yes, you want to, but what are you doing about it? Because wanting is different. You might want it, yes, but you've got to start proving to the universe that I'm actually dedicated to this. And this is something, by the way, that you cannot cheat the universe about. You have to be committed. You have to, for you to even start anything, you usually have to have the conviction that this will work. So you start with that conviction and you start that particular project. I promise you, and you guys will come and tell me if that money won't come in to help you finish those projects. So don't wait. Money follows a purpose. Don't wait. Don't wait for you to have a big chunk of it for you to be able to do whatever it is you want to do. Another thing that I think people underestimate a lot is that since we know that money circulates, you have to be the kind of person that is very giving. When I say giving, it does not mean you go beyond your ability. Just have a habit of giving. When someone serves you food, there's no harm in you tipping that person some 100 shillings, 200 shillings. Have a habit of just letting money flow around. When someone comes and asks you for help, even if you can't give them whatever they want, figure how to help them in whatever capacity. When you are giving, there's always a return back. Let's give a practical example of this class, right? The usual master classes I do, they would go for a minimum of about $100. That is 13,000. This class, I think we charge about 3,000 of that price. Someone will ask, why would you go through the struggle of that when the global clans show up in more numbers and they pay better? I understand that it's not always directly correlated in that level of return. I have to start from the grassroots. And what people don't understand is that it's for these particular sessions, I don't even think I make a cent out of it because the expenses involved. But the process of giving directly comes back to me in other forms that are not visible. And in the process of opening your eyes to your ability and you go and do something positive in your life and you expand your life, because we are collectively connected. The blessings that come through your life that I contributed to flow back to me in ways that I might not tell immediately, but they do. You need to understand that in energetics, there is no separation. So move through life in a more intentional manner. Offer an hand when you can offer an hand. Even if that is just advice, even if it's just insight, that is giving. You know, if you're able to host people for a meal, host people for a meal. You get returns in the process based on your input, because energy, everything is energy. So there's always an exchange happening. So you can't be the person in the universe that just takes. What are you giving? What is your contribution? So one other aspect of abundance when it comes to money is understanding that the giving process is not loss. It's a gaining process. It's just we misunderstand it from our very greedy world that we live in, and we are conditioned, not conditioned, but we look at, for example, our politicians, and you wonder, when do you guys decide enough is enough? And when do you guys just decide that you want to work for the people, right? And this is why you might have all the money in the world, and some of them do, but they're miserable. Yeah? Someone told me, I don't know, she was telling me a story in the morning when we were driving here that one of our leaders lost their cool in a setup when they were being booed. I'm like, by the time you're a leader and you're losing your cool and cursing your audience, it shows me that internally there is a lack. There's something happening. Because me in my small world, for somebody to get on my nerves, I think you'd really have to trample on me multiple times. Because I've mastered myself to a level that I can only allow you to insult me, but you can't insult me. And I can only allow you to demean me, but you can't demean me from where you sit, from where you are. So how did you get leaders at the top of the chain, losing their control and overreacting in certain situations? It means even with all the money you have, internally, there's a misbalance. Clearly, things are not very good at home. Yeah. So one of the aspects you have to learn about abundance and money is what people say karma, but what you give out, you get back. And usually you get it back in numbers. So you might seem like you did a very small favor for somebody, but that favor comes back to you, usually in huge numbers. I think I'm forced to wrap up, but I'm going to tell you two more things on how to win in life. Number one is the obvious, which is determination. You have to have a strong conviction and follow it through. Number two is delusion. You see, whatever it is you're thinking is your biggest goal, now triple it. And whatever timeline you've given yourself, start shortening that timeline. I'd say it's happening. It's happening already because it already is unfolding. And lastly is passion. Please do more things that you love to do to elevate your frequency. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do, even if it's over the weekend, is to do your favorite hobby. Because you don't understand that in that moment, you're probably helping your manifestation come in more faster because your frequency is elevated.